Fantastic Mr. Fox. Right, we are on chapter 10, Boggus's Chicken House number 1. So far, the foxes are stuck down their hole. The farmers, Boggus, Bunce and Bean, have tried to dig them out with spades. They've had the big tractors, big diggers. They've tried to dig them out. And now they've decided they're going to starve them out. Mr. Fox has had a plan, and let's see what happens. This time we must go in a very special direction, said Mr. Fox, pointing sidewards and downwards. So he and the 4 children started to dig once again. The work went much more slowly now, yet they kept it up with great courage, and little by little the tunnel began to grow. Dad, I wish you would tell us where we're going, said one of the children. Digging. I dare not do that, said Mr. Fox, because this place I'm hoping to get to is so marvellous that if I described it to you now, you would go crazy with excitement. And then if we fail to get there, which is very possible, you would die of disappointment. I don't want to raise your hopes too much, my little darlings. For a long time they kept digging. For how long they didn't know, because there were no days and no nights down in the murky tunnel. But at last Mr. Fox gave the order to stop. I think, he said, we'd better take a peep upstairs and see where we are. I know where I want to be, but I can't possibly be sure we're anywhere near it. Slowly, wearily, the foxes began to slope the tunnel upwards towards the surface. Up it went, until suddenly there came something hard above their heads, and they couldn't go any further. Mr. Fox reached up to examine the hard thing. It's wood, he whispered. Wooden planks. What does that mean, Dad? It means that unless I'm very much mistaken, we are right underneath somebody's house, whispered Mr. Fox. Be very quiet now while I take a peep. He's having a peepy look. Carefully, Mr. Fox began pushing up one of the floorboards. The board creaked most terribly, and they ducked down, waiting for something awful to happen, but nothing did. So Mr. Fox pushed up a second board, and then, very cautiously, he poked his head through the gap and let out a shriek of excitement. He went, yay! I've done it, he yelled. I've done it for the first time. I've done it. He pulled himself through the gap of the floor and started prancing and dancing with joy. Come on up, he sang. Come on up and see where you are, my darlings. It's a sight for a hungry fox. Hooray! Hallelujah! Hooray! The 4 small foxes scrambled up out of the tunnel. What a fantastic sight it was that met their eyes. They were in a huge shed, and the whole place was teeming with chickens. There were white chickens and brown chickens and black chickens by the 1,000. Boggus's Chicken House number 1, cried Mr. Fox. It's exactly where I was aiming at, and I hit it slap in the middle. Whoop, Teddy. First time, isn't that fantastic? And if I may say so, rather clever. Small foxes went wild with excitement. They started running around in all directions, chasing the stupid chickens. Wait, ordered Mr. Fox. Don't lose your heads. Stand back, calm down. Let's do this properly. First, all of you, everyone, have a drink of water. They ran up to the chicken's drinking trough and lapped up the lovely cool water. Then Mr. Fox chose 3 of the plumpest hens, and with a clever flick of his jaws killed them instantly. He looks very excited to be in the chicken house, doesn't he? Back to the tunnel, he ordered. Come on. No fooling around. The quicker you move, the quicker you shall have something to eat. One after another they climbed through the hole in the floor, and soon they were standing once again in the dark tunnel. Mr. Fox reached up and pulled the floorboards back into place. He did this with great care. He did it so no one could tell that they'd been moved. My son, he said, giving the 3 plump hens to the biggest of his small children. Run back for these to your mother. Run back to your mother. And tell her to prepare a feast, and the rest of us will be along in a jiffy, as soon as we've made a few other arrangements. Chapter 11, a surprise for Mrs. Fox. I think it probably will be a surprise for Mrs. Fox. The small fox ran back along the tunnel as fast as he could, carrying 3 plump hens. He was exploding with joy. Just wait, he kept thinking. Just wait till Mummy sees these. He had a long way to run, but he never stopped once on the way, and he came bursting in upon Mrs. Fox. "Mummy," he cried out of breath. "Look, Mummy, look. Wake up and see what I've brought you." Mrs. Fox was weaker than ever now from lack of food, and opened one eye and looked at the hens. "I'm dreaming," she murmured, and she closed her eyes again. "You're not dreaming, Mummy. They're real chickens. We're saved. We're not going to starve." "But my dear child," she cried, "where on earth?" "Boggis's chicken house number 1, spluttered the small fox. "We tunnelled right up under the floor. You've never seen so many big fat hens in all your life. Dad said to prepare a feast and they'll be back soon." The sight of food seemed to give new strength to Mrs. Fox. "A feast it'll be," she said, standing up. "What a fantastic fox your father is. Hurry up, child, and start plucking those chickens." She looks a bit happier, better there, doesn't she? Far away down in a tunnel, the fantastic Mr. Fox was saying, "Now for these bit, my darlings. This one will be as easy as pie. All we have to do is dig another tunnel from here to there." "To where, Dad?" "Don't ask so many questions and start digging." Oh, I'm going to go for the next chapter. It's slightly longer though. Chapter 12, Badger. Mr. Fox and the 3 remaining small foxes dug fast and straight. They were all too excited now to feel tired or hungry. They knew they were going to have a whacking great feast before long, and the fact that it was none other than Boggis's chickens they were going to eat made them churgle, that's a different word, churgle, with laughter. Every time they thought of it, I think churgle's a bit like a chuckle. It was lovely to realise that while the fat farmer was sitting up there on his hill waiting for them to starve, he was also giving them dinner without knowing it. "Keep digging," said Mr. Fox. "It's not much further." All of a sudden, a deep voice above their heads said, "Who goes there?" The foxes jumped. They looked up quickly, and they saw, peeking through a small hole in the roof of the tunnel, a long, black, pointed, furry face. "Badger!" cried Mr. Fox. "Foxy!" cried Badger. "My goodness, I'm glad I found someone at last. I've been digging in circles for 3 days and nights. I haven't the foggiest idea where I am." It's like, "Foxy! Badger! Foxy! Badger!" Badger made the hole in the ceiling bigger, and he dropped down beside the foxes. A small badger, his son, dropped down after him. "Haven't you heard what's happening on the hill?" Badger said excitedly. "It's chaos. Half the wood has disappeared, and there are men with guns all over the countryside. None of us can get out, even at night. We're all starving to death." "Who is we?" said Mr. Fox. "All us diggers. That's me, and Mole, and Rabbit, and all of our wives and children. Even Weasel, who can usually sneak out of the tightest spots, is right now hiding down my hole with Mrs. Weasel and 6 kids. What on earth are we going to do, Foxy? I think we're finished." Mr. Fox looked at his 3 children and smiled. The children smiled back, showing his secret. "My dear old Badger," he said, "this mess you're in is all my fault." "I know it's your fault," said Badger furiously, "and the farmers won't give up until they've got you. Unfortunately, that means us as well. It means everyone on the hill." Badger sat down and put a paw around his small son. "We're done for," he said softly. "My poor wife up there is so weak she can't dig another yard." Having a little chat. I don't think Badger's very happy with Mr. Fox. "Nor can mine," said Mr. Fox. "Yet this very minute she's preparing for me and my children the most delicious feast of plump, juicy chickens Mr. Fox is very excited about that. Stop, cried Badger. Don't tease me, I can't stand it. It's true, said the small foxes. Dad's not teasing, we've got chickens galore. And because it's entirely my fault, said Mr. Fox, I invite you to share the feast. I invite everyone to share it. You and Mole and Rabbit and Weasel and all your wives and children. There'll be plenty to go around, I can assure you. You mean it, cried Badger. You really mean it? Fox pushed his face close to Badger's and whispered darkly. Do you know where we've just been? Where? Right inside Boggis's chicken house number 1. No. Yes, but that's nothing to where we're going now. You have come just at the right moment, my dear Badger. You can help us to dig. And in the meanwhile, your small son can run back to Mrs. Badger and all the others and spread the good news. Mr. Fox turned to the small Badger and said, Tell them you're invited to Fox's feast. Then bring them all down here, follow this tunnel back until you find my home. Yes, Mr. Badger said. Yes, Mr. Fox, said the small Badger. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Oh, thank you, sir. And he scrambled back through the hole in the roof and disappeared. He's off, look. Going to go tell Mrs. Badger. Right, when we come back, it is Bunce's Giant Storehouse. Chapter 13. I do like this book, it's pretty cool.